Okay.
All right. Welcome, everybody. My name is Gary Gonzer. I'm the president of ESCOM, and I'd like to welcome you to our program on mental health and suicide prevention. This is Mental Health Month, after all, and we want to address that directly with what facilities are available to us and the programs that will help us. So, mental health moves front and center with our discussion of facts and issues surrounding mental health and suicide. We have plenty of resources in the County of Marin and College of Marin campuses that are available to us, and we need not feel alone or isolated. We have help close by. So this program will cover what resources are available in Marin County to our older adults and others. What are the risks and warning signs that we can be aware of in our lives? What are ways of talking about mental health with someone in distress? And what are the facts about suicide in our world? So we have three presenters from the Marin County Suicide Prevention Collaborative and the College of Marin Psychological Services on board to talk about mental health and suicide in prevention in particular. Chris Nihill, one of our presenters, has a master's in counseling and works at Buccleuch Programs. Lisa Henry is another presenter, has a master's in psychology and works with Marin County as their program coordinator for suicide prevention. And finally, Daniela Muscante works as a full-time staff with the College of Marin Psychological Services. So without further ado, let's move into our program with Chris and Lisa. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gary.
Good morning, everyone. Bear with me as I bring up our lovely PowerPoint. And Great. Good morning, everyone. My name is Lisa Henry. I'm a senior program coordinator for suicide prevention. I am here with Chris Nihill, who's the outreach and education coordinator for Buccleuch Programs. And together we are going to do a presentation on suicide prevention this morning for you. We will run through the slides. It's very interactive at times. We will ask you to either put your comments in the chat or to unmute yourself and make your comments. Harvey and Gary are going to monitor the chat. If you do drop something in the chat, they're going to help with that. And we do have a little bit of interactive scenarios to go through. Don't be shy, but if you don't want to speak, that's totally fine. We'll just we'll talk with Gary and Harvey. So without further ado, I wanted to give us some caring reminders, which are that mental health and suicidality are very personal and can be emotional topics to discuss. And many of us are survivors who miss our friends, our relatives, and our neighbors. Some may be attempt survivors or may be thinking about suicide. If you are thinking about suicide, please reach out. And there are plenty of resources available at the end of this presentation. And also a note, you shouldn't hold yourself responsible for something you didn't do in the past based on what you will learn today. Here are a couple of phone numbers and text addresses for you. The national hotline or text is 988 for crisis and suicide. And these resources will be available at the end of the presentation. Today, we're going to learn about the Marin County Suicide Prevention Collaborative, facts and terminology about suicide, risk and protective factors and warning signs, how to communicate with someone in distress, and resources. So if you would either unmute yourself or drop in the chat for Gary and Harvey, what is a strength of yours that you bring to keeping a person safe? What is something you bring to the table? You can unmute yourself or you could drop a note in the chat. We'll start with Gary. Hey, Gary, what do you bring to keep a person safe?
It's quite common that people don't want to talk about any issues. But if I see anybody having problems, my biggest thing is to listen and find out what they are worried about and have a sounding board for them, which they may not get elsewhere. So that's what I tend to bring to a situation.
And it looks like Luann is right there with you. She said she's a good listener. Anybody else want to chime in about what they bring to keep a person safe? Harvey, do you have a comment? Or Luann, you unmuted?
I'd say that really, as a good listener, that's probably one of the key criteria, but also to bring to the table some past experiences to someone who's experiencing challenges, and I think sometimes it helps people to know that others have suffered or have problems also.
Right. And Arya says that she lets them know I care and I'll be with them as long as they need me to be with them. That's a great comment. That's a great action.
I have a comment.
Yes.
I recently lost a son to suicide, and I would just say it opened up this idea to me that if anybody ever sounds like they're sad, or if I normally wouldn't invade somebody's person about questioning them, but after this happening, I just find myself always asking, are you okay? Or can I do, or just be there? Just go that one step more, just to find out, just to see if there's something else going on. Yeah.
Laura, I am
Thank you,
sorry
Laura.
for your loss. Thank you for
Thanks.
sharing. I hope that you find this presentation supportive, but we'll welcome your input, but take it easy. Sometimes topics like this, when you've recently lost someone, can be a little bit activating. So just take care of yourself today. And thank you for being here. Great. So I'm going to move on. If my computer will let me. There we go. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the Marin County Suicide Prevention Collaborative. We are a multi-sectorial group of public and private individuals and agencies, loss survivors, attempt survivors, and allies. And we meet the first Wednesday every month at 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. Our next meeting is June 7th at 2 p.m. And I will be dropping a link in the chat for you to register. We build community and awareness and advance the strategic plan for suicide prevention. Our leadership structure, we have 2 co-chairs, and then we are formed up with community action teams, such as the communication team, data team, training, postvention, schools, lethal means, youth, and men and boys. And our key partners are Gun Safety Collaborative, MCOE, Marin Healthy Youth Partnerships, OD Free Marin, Aging Action Initiative, and many more, such as College of Marin. And if you want to read our annual report, here's the website, but I'll be dropping the live link into the chat for you to follow up. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Chris. Oh, one more thing. We have 7 strategies in our strategic plan. We're very well organized. If you want to read more about this, we have a strategic plan link on our suicide prevention page, which I am dropping into the chat again, and you can revisit what we are doing in Marin County to prevent suicide. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to Chris.
Thank you,
Chris,
Lisa.
take it away.
Thank you, Lisa. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about language, that our language is informed by our values, beliefs, and perceptions about suicide. It's important that we create shared language about suicide in our community. When we talk about suicide, we often use words like committed suicide, successful attempt, or completed attempt. Instead of using these terms, which can further stigmatize people, we should say someone who has died by suicide, taken their life, or person living with suicidal thoughts or behaviors. There is no success or lack of success when dealing with suicide. So let's talk about some facts about suicide. The more we understand suicide prevention, the more we can help people that we care about who are struggling. So talking about suicide will not give someone the idea to take their life. In fact, not talking about suicide may keep a person at risk. People in distress are ambivalent. Most people who attempt suicide don't want to die. They simply want their pain to end. Most people, when given appropriate resources, choose to live. Providing resources is a lifeline to hope. People who attempt suicide are not doing it for sympathy or to prove something. Sometimes a person may have tried to ask for help, but they could have been dismissed, avoided, or missed. Suicide is a leading cause of death among people who misuse alcohol and drugs. Substances are typically involved in suicide and lead to inhibition and reduced judgment for a person in distress. There is hope. Talking about suicide can feel daunting, but there is hope. The majority of people feel suicide can be prevented, are interested in learning how to play a role in helping, believe people show signs before taking their life, but relatively few feel they can identify these signs, or have the right words to have a conversation, but would like to. Express greater readiness to discuss mental health and other struggles. The American Foundation for Suicide Prevention conducted a survey that indicated, again, that the majority of people want hope. So what are we looking for? What are we paying attention to? What are ways that someone might convey to you their distress? This is open to the group and open to putting something in the chat. What are some words that people might say that give you some concern? Anybody? I hate my life. Yes, Harvey, absolutely. Yeah, those are the kind of triggers that we, talking about wanting to die, seeking revenge, life sucks, why bother, or having a suicide plan. Absolutely. How about actions? Anything that comes up? I once had to assess a 6-year-old for suicide ideation, and their actions were showing they were thinking about it. They were running into traffic. They were jumping off of tall buildings. So searching online, using drugs and alcohol, again, my child, taking risky chances, spending more time alone, skipping class, sleeping, all of these things are triggers. They are red flags to us. Look at their artwork. I love that from Gloria. Yes. Look at their artwork. Is it dark? Are the colors dark? Is the theme dark? Absolutely. Thank you for that. And what are some feelings that come up that would trigger you, that would help you to think about it? Anybody? Feelings?
Unable to communicate.
Mm,
Yes. Yes. Thank you for that. Absolutely. So we look at depression, changes in mood, like always changes in sleep, either sleeping too much or not sleeping enough. Coming to terms with gender and sexual identity, stomach aches, physical aches. Absolutely. Any others that you can think of? Oh, great. Susan, afraid of being alone because they might hurt themselves. Huge indicator. Huge indicator. And this is not a comprehensive list. And if you'd like to learn more, you can visit suicideispreventable.org. So let's talk about some protective factors. In addition to warning signs, we also consider protective factors. They're like shock absorbers. The more of these we have, these feel-good things, the less risky the behavior and stronger mental health someone can experience. I say, what have you got in your toolbox when you're starting to feel like that? The strongest protective factor is social connectedness. The others, spend time with friends, reaching out for help, talking to a teacher, a counselor, getting sleep, doing things for pleasure, celebrating rituals and traditions. The list goes on and on. Having more of these feeling good things means less, again, risky behavior and stronger mental health. What are ways that you cope with when you feel overwhelmed? What are some protective factors? Anyone? I know for me, it's my dog. Having a pet.
Is that?
I'm sorry,
You can unmute or drop it in the chat.
anybody?
A good cry.
A good cry. Absolutely, absolutely. And we feel sort of cathartic afterwards. Absolutely. Thank you for that. Being outside in nature. Mhm. That's a really good one. Thank you, Danila. Absolutely. So most people who experience risk factors do not die by suicide. And there is not one thing that causes suicide. When we compare suicide to other health issues, such as heart disease, we can look at risk factors in the same way. Risk factors for heart disease include sedentary lifestyle, poor nutrition, or smoking. The more risk factors a person has, the probability increases that this person could have a heart attack, but not always. Again, we work to strengthen protective factors to reduce the impact of risk factors. What are some examples of health risk factors? What do you think? You can, again, speak up or put it in the chat. Anybody?
Chronic pain.
Oh, chronic pain, depression. Absolutely. Yeah, so let's look at some of the others. Frustration, absolutely. Anxiety, chronic pain or brain injury, and genetic vulnerability. Absolutely. How about environment? What can put you at risk?
Losing a job.
Losing a job or being in a high-risk job like the police officers. They're at risk. Access to lethal means, lack of respect, negative social and emotional interactive, negative friends. Thank you, Susan. And social media. We have a lot of bullying, don't we, right now? So prolonged stress, major life changes. Absolutely. How does your family affect you and become a risk factor? What are some things that come up in families?
Diana?
Too busy, too busy for each other. I hear that all the time. I haven't seen you in a while. I'm so busy. Nagging. Thank you, Susan. Nagging. So previous
Isolate-
suicide. I'm sorry.
Social isolation.
Social isolation. Yes. High expectations from Laura. Yeah. Family history of suicide, childhood abuse, parental mental health, problems in parent-child relationships, financial problems, incarceration, lack of acceptance. So these are all things, and no one of them, can be a cause factor, but often it's a collaboration of them. So before we move into a group discussion, I'd like to address what it means for someone to be in distress. Can you think of a time in your life when you experienced pain, such as a broken leg or a concussion? Anybody?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Now, given that moment in time, think about what it would be like if someone asked you for directions. Is that something you could do while in pain? What do you think?
Hmm.
Probably.
Probably you could. No, Susan and I say no.
Well,
Or at least no.
if you're in charge of a family, you have to.
Ah,
Yeah.
yes. Yes, good point. Good point. When we think about someone in distress, though, we often wonder why they don't reach out for help. And it can be explained by this image. Life is about balance. We have an infinite number of stressors in our life and a finite number of coping skills. When our stressors outweigh our ability to cope, a sense of hopelessness can emerge, and a person's problem-solving abilities become compromised, and they experience black or white thinking or all or nothing. So a person's thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are affected. There is no one reason why a person may become suicidal. It's a combination of biological, psychological, and social factors that influence a crisis state. So, would someone be willing to read the scenario rather than myself or Lisa?
We're good. This is the interactive part of our presentation. Besides just asking you questions, we'd like to get your feedback on this scenario. Would somebody like to read?
I'll read.
Okay.
Marie is a high school college student. She was diagnosed with social anxiety disorder. Her father recently lost his job and the family had to move to her aunt's condo. Marie now shares a room with her 12-year-old sister. Marie transferred to a new school midway through the academic year and has been struggling since the beginning. You happened across her journal and saw that Marie wrote, "She wishes she were dead and no one cares."
Mm. So how would you approach this scenario? How would you approach Marie? Would you, if you knew these facts?
Definitely.
Well, first off, I don't think I would tell her that I looked on her journal, but I would then probably spend more time listening and finding out what her challenges are.
Mhm. And what warning signs do you see that makes you want to have that discussion?
Well, obviously, she wishes she were dead. If she had written that one is a pretty serious one. No one cares is something that most kids could probably say at any point in their life. But definitely she wishes she were dead was one that would trigger.
Mhm.
She already has social anxiety disorder, so she's got a problem already.
Yes,
I
Oh,
would want to tell,
go ahead.
I would want to tell her that I wouldn't tell her I read anything, but I would say, I really care about you and I really want to be your friend. And maybe, we can go for a walk together or share something or find some interest of hers that
Mhm.
maybe I could talk about with her so she sees me as a connection to life.
Mhm.
Yes,
I
yes,
think, I think you should talk to the family. I mean, the father just lost his job. He must be pretty grim.
Mhm.
Go give him another uh problem to solve rather than his own.
mm-hmm,
In his own family would help both of them.
mm-hmm. Do you see any protective factors in this scenario?
Protective.
Writing in a journal, that's a good thing.
Yes, journaling. Mm-hmm. Anything else?
Talk
Chris, do
to
you
the
want to just
counselor at school.
explain what a protective versus
Sure.
risk factor?
Again, those protective factors were things like my dog, my friends, going out into nature, things you've got that you can go to when you're feeling really down.
It's like the opposite of a risk factor. A risk factor is something that might make you more likely or increase your likelihood of distress or suicidality. And then a protective factor is what protects against both the distresses.
Yes,
That
thank
makes
you.
it better.
If she was diagnosed with social anxiety disorder, I would want to get her a therapist of, somewhere in the system. There has to be someone who could work with her on that, because she really needs that one-on-one support.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for all of your comments on this. As we noted in the beginning of the presentation, it's okay to talk to someone about suicide. We know that talking about suicide will not give someone the idea to take their life. Can we have the next slide, Lisa?
I was just going to pipe up about that it's sort of the same principle that used to apply. People used to be very worried about this with sex education. That if you talked about sex to teenagers or whatever, then that would give them the idea. As if, right? This kind of worry that if you say something, it's going to make people do it, as opposed to like, it's something that we think about and that some, that people think about, or it's in people's minds, and saying it isn't going to make it happen. In fact,
Right.
not saying something is more
Yes.
risk.
Yes.
Right.
I think it really opens people up. And it may seem intimidating, but remember that often when someone is thinking about suicide, they're looking for an opportunity. And so does someone want to read a couple of the ask, listen, and get help?
I will.
Okay.
So you can ask, you seem really down lately. Are you okay? Are you thinking of suicide? Or when you say you give up on life sucks, what do you mean by that? Are you thinking of taking your life? And in the listen, it really hurts when somebody breaks up with you. I'm so glad you told me. Or I can imagine how tough this must be for you. Maybe there's a chance you won't feel this way forever. And then get help. I care about you. You can start to feel better with some help and support. I'm going to stay with you while we get help. Is there someone you think we can call? A therapist, a parent, a hotline?
Thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, absolutely. And we need to be direct. Are you thinking about suicide? Are you thinking about taking your life? So I think, again, we've in the past not wanted to use the words, but we need to use the words. And we've had people call in on the hotline for someone else. They're like, here's my friend. He wants to talk to you. And so staying with somebody or being with somebody can be so helpful.
And in suicide prevention, this is the framework we use: ask, listen, and refer or get help. So 3 things to think about when that happens, when you hear somebody in distress or maybe hinting at suicidal thoughts or behaviors, is ask. And then, as in the chat, everybody said listen, and then get help.
Absolutely. So what if they say no? Well, encourage them to talk about how they're feeling. And that's hard for specific populations. So again, support their coping and resiliency. Ask what helps them feel better. So sometimes we need to move to something a little more general, like when we're on the phones, and then bring them back to, are you feeling suicidal? Encouraging them to reach out to resources such as the Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Again, we want people to call 988. The calls are routed to our call center in Novato. And we have trained counselors on those lines. Remind them that you are there for them. Listen without lecturing or judgment. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in the next slide. Be vigilant about the behaviors you are noticing and continue to check in with them on a regular basis.
Chris,
What
I
not to
don't
say?
know if, I just don't know if folks, not everyone knows about 988. I don't know if it's something you're going to talk about later more, or I just wanted to, in case folks didn't know what you were referencing.
Oh, thank you. So 988 is the new national lifeline. And we still have their regular phone number, but 988 is kind of like a 911 in the sense that we all remember 911. And 988 is for emotional crisis and suicide prevention. So it's not just for suicide prevention, it's also for an emotional crisis. I know sometimes people feel like I'm not suicidal, but I'm pretty upset and I need to talk to someone. When you first call, you reach sort of a connecting station, and they will ask you if you want to go to the VA phone line or you want to stay on the line. They will again look at your area code and they will route you to us in Novato, and we're 24/7 phone service, and it's very confidential. We may ask your name. You can give a false name if you want. People, I know a lot of students are afraid we'll call the police. Rarely do we ever call the police. It's only if it's an imminent, I'm going to kill myself, I have a bottle of pills, I'm going to do it now. Most of the time we're there to listen and to encourage, to come up with a safety plan, and to get them to resources. Thank you for bringing that up. So what not to say? Well, yeah, what not to say? It's not that bad. Stay positive. Don't say that. I know how you feel. That's hard when you can't walk in my shoes. You have a lot to live for. Other people have it worse, or you're being selfish, you'll go to hell. These are things, these phrases can make someone feel that it's their fault, further stigmatizes that person who is already struggling. Have you ever inadvertently said something like this? Because I think we all have. And you can see the reaction on their face. So I think that's why we want to avoid these kind of phrases. So get help immediately. Remove pills, limit inappropriate use of sedatives, firearms, safe storage, police, restraining gun orders. If you don't feel safe at any time, leave the location immediately. The Suicide Crisis and Lifeline is 988. And again, we're really pushing that because people can remember that easily. The Marin hotline, which also comes to Buccaloo, is 415-499-1100, and the North Bay number 855 587-6373. We answer all of these lines. And do get help for your friend, even if they're reluctant to accept it. Although your help and support is very important, you can't do it alone. Your friend needs help to know how to handle their feelings, and their life may depend on you getting adult help for them. Do understand their reluctancy, but don't delay. Absolutely. So to recap, if you sense something is wrong, don't delay. We have this feeling of, oh, it's probably not that bad. I don't want to, send the police. And you don't have to send the police. You can call 988. You can find the words to have this difficult conversation. You can express your concern, mention specific things you've noticed, ask them directly if they're thinking about suicide.
So on the behavioral health side, you can go to prevention.marinbhrs.org, and there's resources and support in the digital directory. I just posted in the chat different resources, the Marin Suicide Prevention Collaborative website, the Suicide Prevention Program website, the May mental health events, and the link to register for the monthly collaborative meeting. If you go to any of these websites, they're linked to one another. You can get resources from behavioral health. You can also drop me an email at lhenry, like Lisa Henry, at marincounty.org for BHRS resources. And we'll go on to Chris.
Yeah, so Buckaloo programs, we're located in Novato. We are a call center for all 988 and Marin suicide calls. We also answer calls for Sonoma County, Lake County, and Mendocino County. And please contact me if I can be of any help at Christina, N, one word, at buckaloo.org, or also check with Gary, because Gary knows how to reach both Lisa and I. So again, we're here to help you, and we do these trainings, both Lisa and I, and are happy to come and do them for an individual group, and they're free. Thank you.
And here are our resources. If you would like this slide, please drop either Chris or myself an email, and we would be happy to forward this slide to you. So, and that is the end of our presentation. Christy, do you have anything you want to share before I stop sharing?
No, I think it's good.
Great.
I can kind of pipe in and just add in one more resource that's available for, I hope I'm not cutting anyone off here.
No.
Thank you for that and for bringing this discussion to us, and thanks to everyone for being here. I'm always like, I'm a clinical psychologist. I work at College of Marin, and so I'm kind of steeped in mental health stuff and all the time. But I'm always it can be a little bit of a I don't experience it this way, but it can be a bit of a downer, particularly talking about suicide on your Friday. And so I'm always kind of heartened, to see who you all be here and willing to talk about, particularly such a something that is hard to talk about, or something you might see and say, I don't know if I want to spend my Friday morning doing that. So appreciate you all being here, and really, that's part of what this is about, is the more that we show up for each other, the more that we talk about things, and kind of, instead of keeping them silenced or silencing them or keeping things inside, the more we can be in community, the more we can speak up and open up discussions about things that are hard, suffering, suicide, the more that it helps and we heal. So you're all a part of that, even just being here. So thank you. And just wanted to add in a resource at the College of Marin. in case you don't know about it, or a reminder, we have free psychological services available at the College of Marin. The only requirement is that you need to be currently a student, like enrolled in a class currently, whatever semester it is. So right now it'd be the fall, and if in the summer, if you're enrolled in a summer class, to be able to access the services. The way to, I'm happy to answer questions about it. I'll put a link in the chat of just the webpage that you can really easily Google or something if you don't have it handy. But the way to access us is to give us a call. I'll put the number in the chat. You give us a call, or I can say it too now if you want to write it down. It's 415-485-9649. So you give us a call, and you may leave a message, and we'll give you a call back and go through some questions with you, and then get you set up for an appointment. So just wanted to let folks know about resource.com, and happy to answer questions about that as well. And thank you to looks like Luann might have a question, and thank you to ESCOM for inviting us, and for holding this event as well.
Okay, Luann, did you have a?
Yes, I do have a question, and what we've talked a lot about what you say to someone who may be contemplating suicide. My question is, though, how do you comfort a father whose 30-year-old son has just committed suicide? In other words, what do you say? I mean, I would love to have some words, since I'm going to be doing that in another week. What do you say to them when they've lost a child by suicide? Is there anything that would be more comforting than another?
Well, Luann, I facilitate the Survivors of Suicide group that meets twice a month. And these are people who have lost their children, their spouse, their friends. And to be perfectly honest, I don't think there are specific words that are comforting. I think oftentimes it's just being there for them, holding a hand, giving a hug, listening. It sounds like this person you're talking about is pretty recent. Yeah. And yes, but they're welcome to come to our group. We actually have a family that's coming right now that lost someone within a couple of weeks ago. So it's tough to come, but it's so wonderful. This group is so powerful in how they comfort each other from having gone through this loss and know the terribleness of it. So I don't know if there are any perfect words, but just being a friend, checking in, want a cup of coffee, again, listening.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I just feel that with a parent who maybe has lost a child by suicide, there may be more feelings of, I should have done something. Is it, did I contribute? Am I guilty? And there seems to be that there's got to be some way to address that, but not, it's not your fault. But I just thought there might be specific ways of handling a suicide death than another, but perhaps not. And then maybe you don't want it to be any different. I don't know. Just thought I'd ask.
Well, I think Luann's bringing up something around the stigma of suicide, right? That there might be that there is a stigma around suicide and around mental health, and so that there might be other things that this friend of yours is processing or going through. But I think I think what you're wanting to say is that you care, right? Like that you're wanting to let this person know that you care, and that and not that and not feel stigmatized, right? We're trying to decrease the stigma just literally within ourselves, right? By sort of showing up and supporting this person and letting them know you care, that, that you're not judging them or, thinking these things or whatever. And you wouldn't necessarily say that, right? Like, I'm not but by being there and how you're showing up in whatever way is natural for you, and letting the person know that you care about them, is doing a part of the destigmatizing and the maintaining connection, as opposed to when people feel stigmatized, or when we are stigmatized, then people will distance, right? And
I
does
just want
come
to
up.
add, oh, excuse me,
does come up.
I would like to add, I was the public administrator for the county and worked in that office for 30 years. And I handled this county that wasn't handled by family members. And I handled a lot of probates where there was a lot of ill feeling towards the person who, first of all, committed suicide. People were usually disenfranchised from that person. And sometimes they were upset with the person. Sometimes they were upset with other family members. They were great at that. It was somebody else's fault but their own. But a lot of times most of the time, all I ever did was listen. I don't think there was a rare occasion when I interjected myself. I just sat there and listened to them. Most of the time I was on the phone, but a lot of times I was in person too. And all they just want to talk. I found that their family members they want to talk. They want to get it out. They want to feel like somebody cares. But suicide I thought I'd had young suicides. I had old suicides. I had a lot of people not a lot, but several that jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge. I had people that committed suicide in almost every different way. And it was very sad. You just sat and I felt sad. So maybe they felt that, but I would just listen to them.
Thanks. to
Yeah,
all of
I
you.
think the comments come out again, that when you say things like, oh, you're not at fault and it's okay. And, that doesn't really help. I think it's better to kind of validate their feelings. I'm sorry you feel that way. That must be so hard for you. And so getting them to, again, continue to talk about their feelings. And it comes up in the group that they're comforted by hearing other people say, me too, I've thought the same things. And there doesn't seem to be an answer, but we can comfort each other.
And Laura had
Thank
a
you.
comment to avoid asking the way or the details of the death. So to
Mhm.
not focus on that, focus on listening. And like a previous comment, there's a lot of conflicting emotions that a person is feeling. I'm a suicide survivor, and I know there's a lot of us are, and there's a lot of conflicting feelings. And to normalize that and just to let them be, and to be broad-minded and accepting, but not to pry, because that's really not what you're there for.
Right. Thank you, all of you. That was really, really helpful.
I think grief is really, as Lisa said, very complex emotion. And it brings up all kinds of things, and at all kinds of different times, whether it's a recent loss or one in the past, very complex.
Yeah, one of the questions that we had some questions that came in before the event today, and one of them I like to speak on. It asks about the effects of various drugs used to relieve mental health issues. Now, I know just from my own daughter and her experiences and her friends that it seems like almost every friend that she has is on some form of drug right now. It seems to be really, Ambien and all these other different drugs that so many kids seem to be on drugs for certain mental health challenges. And to me, it seems like it's really gone much more pronounced than ever before. And is that because children have much more stressors in their life now than they did when I was going up through high school? And I'm not sure why that is.
Want to feel that, Janella?
Harvey's bringing up a hot topic.
I
And if anyone has the answer, I'd love to hear it. So yes, so more folks are receiving psychotropic medications for mental health issues. More people are diagnosed with mental health diagnoses than before. The question, of course, is, does that mean there's more mental health problems? Or does that mean that it's more out in the open? People are talking about it more, people are getting more treatment. Does it mean that pharmaceutical companies and big pharma are
I think it's all of that.
doing quite well? Go ahead, Tanya.
I think that it's like the AI business. You have a problem with your newspaper subscription. You can't get a body at the other end of the phone. They can't be bothered. They give you a set of instructions. If somebody has trouble now, they don't want to take the time to talk to the child or the person. Give them a pill, it'll calm down and everything will be all right. I don't have to bother with it anymore.
Yeah, so there's a lot more medications to treat mental health difficulties than there were in the past, and they're better
solve anything.
than they were in the past. But it doesn't make all the problems go away.
No, you're just painting it over, covering it up. I don't want to deal with it. Give him a pill.
Don't you think
I will say just one piece about kind of what the research shows around medications. And obviously there's lots of different medications and lots of different mental health concerns. So it's hard to lump it all together, but without getting into, we could have a whole presentation on that, Harvey, and maybe we should, but the research shows that what's most helpful for mental health treatment, and that would include suicidality and depression and factors leading to suicide, like substance use, and depression. What's most helpful in terms of treatment in general is a combination of therapy and medication. That medication can be quite helpful, but not on its own. That it's not a sufficient treatment, which I think is part of what Tanya's speaking to.
Yeah, I've heard so many people say, well, I go to my psychiatrist, I'm there for 10 minutes and he gives me a pill.
Mhm.
And that's it.
Yeah,
Bill is $200,
yeah. That's why we're really pushing 988 as well for youth to call us. And we're always so, I don't want to say excited, but we're so glad when young people call us from college, from high school, and we have that opportunity to listen to them and talk about their strengths as well as the difficulties they're having. So 988, we're really pushing it.
Yeah.
I have a question. When I was growing up, which is a very long time ago, I'm 84, you were bullied, you fought with the kids, if you didn't come from a happy family, you had sadness, you had lots of elements that could lead to mental health issues. And I hate to say it this way, this sounds awful, but some of us got past it. Some of us became more resilient and we grew from it. How can we help the kids today do that? How can we not give them the pill? How can we tell them this is part of life and show them the hard thing with kids is they have no perspective. They haven't lived long enough to be able to look back and say, this is how it was and look where I am now. They only have now. How can we help them see that if they hang in there and forgive the language if it's wrong, but if they hang in there and they get through it, they're going to be okay.
I don't know if you're familiar with some of the high schools in the area. They have peer support classes for their leadership. And Lisa and I are out in schools doing trainings and trying to build resiliency around knowledge,
Good.
what you know. So we're working on it.
And also the students and young people are very aware of the problems that are happening with each other. And we just are in the middle of May Mental Health Month. I dropped the link in the chat to go to the page that has all the May Mental Health Month events. And as you will see, the youth had a showcase, art and film showcase. They had several events where they got together. They are building resilience within their own community. And we've had several events where there's high school leadership in elementary, middle school, and high school, where there are students that are in leadership positions who are holding events, who are organizing with other students, especially in Marin County. Marin County has a very, very active youth population. If you want to get plugged in, please drop me a email and I'll get you on the suicide prevention mailing list. We have a youth action group where we work with youth. Also, we advertise different programs and different events that youth are holding or that are targeted at youth. So if you want to pass that on to children and grandchildren, you know, your children who have young adult children or children at all. There's a lot going on in Marin, and youth are doing it for themselves in a lot of ways. There is an uprising of youth who really want to help themselves, and they're very aware of the particular context that they're going through now with social media, with hopelessness about the future and climate change. They're very aware that they are a generation that suffers from a lot of hopelessness, and they are really trying to do things to support each other. So please get in touch with Chris and myself. We'll get you linked with the mailing list, and so that you can be aware of what's going on in your Marin community.
Thank you. That's good to hear.
Right. Okay.
Gary, you're muted.
All right. Thank you very much. This has been very informative and very personal. I'm glad you worked together on making the presentation because it brought so many perspectives up that are essential, because we're all different people. We all have different ideas and ways of expressing ourselves. This is so important. Thank you so much. I do want to say we're at the end of our meeting. It's been an hour, believe it or not. And we are recording this. We will make the recording available to anyone on our website. And that is escom.marin.edu. So please feel free to refer this link to other people who may need it. The information is there loud and clear, and help them.
Whoops. You went mute, Gary. You went.
Gary, you went mute again. You muted yourself for some reason. There you go.
No, you're still muted.
Gary, you're still muted.
If you missed it, I'm sorry. The machine age, I must tell you. So this video is going to be recorded. We're going to make it available on our website, and our website is escom.marin.edu. We will make it available to anyone. Please feel free to share the link and the website to those people who may need it now. The information is critical, and it's very informative, enlightening, and personal. I hope everybody got what I got out of it. Thank you so very much.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you,
Thank
Noel.
you, Gary.
Thank you for hosting us.
Thank
Yes.
you. That was helpful.
Thanks for coming.
It's our pleasure. Thank you for coming aboard, making your statements, and doing a wonderful presentation. And I thank you both. I thank you all three.
Thank you, Gary.
Yeah.
All right. We're
Bye.
Have a wonderful weekend, and remember, The link is on our website.
Thank you, Gary.